to Geared for Growth and part 2 of this special 2-part series with property investor Jenny Mole. We've got some great gold and further insights into her property investing journey with her development projects, and she also shares some great insights for property investors and where she thinks people are going wrong in chasing after their property investment goals. Here's Jenny. So once you finished your career in private lending, or I suppose it's still ongoing, subject to which deals come across your desk, talk to us about this development project, and I suppose that's your main focus at the moment. What's this all about, and what's your goal with that?
So my poor dad, he sold a block of land that he didn't even really know existed. We did, but it was just ticking along. He didn't plan for it in his retirement, and an opportunity came up where the land next door was selling, adjacent block was selling, and he sold it. And he asked me a few questions about it from a real estate perspective because he knows nothing about it. And he went and saw his investment, his investment. He's retired, so he went and saw his investment advisor and was going to, put into the pension, his personal pension fund that he draws from, and all the rest of it. And I said to him, "There's opportunities if you want to go into, some of the developments that I have available in my group of people that I work with, and we can private land, we can work some stuff." And that was where it was. And then he just randomly rang me one day and said, "I've just got back from my financial advisor, and guess what I told her?" I'm like, "Oh, what happened?" He's like, "I told her that I'm becoming a property investor." He was like chuffed, he was so proud because it's not his thing, right? And so I was like, "What? We're doing something. You're on board. What do you want to do with this?" I was so excited. And so I was thinking to put it into something. There was some opportunities that were available through my development mentoring program. And then, I just thought, let's maybe do something together.
Wow.
Him and I.
The guy that shook his head about the levels of debt that you were getting into, and now he's like,
when my daughter's dad and I separated, I hold on to these little tiny digs, if that makes sense. The ones that kind of like just stab you in the heart. You're like, I hang on to them. But like when my daughter's dad and I separated, he said to me, "Is it because of you buying all the properties?"
Oh, wow. Right.
Because of the stress or something, because that's where his head's at, right? Like he would find it stressful, So it was a big turning point. To be honest, for him, and it was, and we've been working together ever since, which is great. So I haven't looked at a house in 5 years, like actually gone to a house inspection to buy, right? And I always always watching, and I just saw this site online, and I think I was at work and I used my lunch break. Don't tell my boss. And I just contacted the agent and said, "I want to come out and have a look at this house." And then we bought it.
Right.
Not that simple. There's a lot of in-betweens, trust me. There's a lot of in-betweens. And I think it was about a month prior to that, my daughter's dad had actually said to me, "I feel like I'm just existing," sort of thing. Like just that Groundhog Day, like I'm not going anywhere. And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. Well, what do you want to do? What do you got?" And he said, "Oh, I've got, whatever it was, X amount cash." And I was like, "Cool, all right, be with me if you can. If you want to do something, I'll find something for you. Whether it be private lending, whatever it is. I'll give you a goal to aim towards. Just come to me." So I wrote Tim in too. So basically, my daughter's dad and I. So we set up, there was, like, I'm talking, you've got no idea of the work that's gone into this development project. I'm talking, my daughter's dad, found out that his identity was stolen. He had a credit rating of 3.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Out of
And that was
5?
after,
Or,
and that was after we were unconditional too. So like good times, right?
well, yeah, right.
So like that's what I mean. This is how we pull stuff together. This is how, like, if you could throw obstacles, um, no matter how many obstacles come, are just you just find a way to get around them. I always find a way to get around them, but believing that I can get around them is how I do it, right?
Mm.
Because I knew even with that, I had backup plans because I could switch him out because I created a unit trust.
Yep.
So I didn't need to amend the contract because the contract of sale was in the unit. It was the trust, right? Or the company, whatever you want to call it. I never know. It's like if the trust, such and such holdings as the trustee for. I never know how
Yeah.
it works, but
Yeah.
it's our daughter's name too. So she thinks she owns a house at Fort. I'd love her. So basically, I knew that I could switch when I found this out. I knew that I'd set it up just in case, it was the best structure. So I knew as my first option, I thought, well, look, worst case, we just switch him out.
Yep.
Worst case, I find somebody else to take his share.
Yep.
And then as far as the contract and ownership goes, no one knows.
Yeah, exactly.
And myself and whoever other party that's the new unit holder, we then apply for the loan.
Yep. But
Which we didn't do.
presumably, yeah, because I know you eat obstacles for breakfast. You found a way to help him to up his credit rating to say 4, and this deal has gone ahead.
Yeah, well, no, it went ahead. So basically, what we ended up having to do was go with a different lender. We requested an extension for settlement because this was over Christmas too, right? Of course.
Yep.
So that just adds all the more delays in there. So my broker found, like, we went with a lender we didn't want to go with. Basically, it's cost the project money up front. But yeah, it's if it was anybody else, I'd have switched it out.
Yeah, yeah.
But family's family, and at the end of the day, I might not necessarily might not sound right. I don't know how to word it, but I might not necessarily care about him as such, but his well-being and his success and his life and how his life is all basically comes down to how my daughter's life is as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a great way of looking at it, right? Because I'm sure that there are some issues that separated parties have that maybe can make it a little bit difficult. But you're sort of thinking about what you have in common, and that is the most important thing that you own, for want of a better term. That's your daughter.
Most important thing in the world.
Hmm.
There's nothing more important in this world than my daughter to me, and I'm sure to him. So that makes it easy. The rest of it makes hard and little snipes and little bits and pieces that every separated family goes through, right? Yes. They're not, we're not happy-go-lucky swigging beers and holding hands, bloody having a dance on the dance floor at the nightclub,
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, what's most important?
So with this site, what are we talking? It was a house on a block that had some capacity to build an additional dwelling, or was it demolish? What are we looking at?
So there's been a lot of different things, working with town planners, draftsmen, all sorts of crazy stuff. But at this stage, it's, obviously until DA application, until it's approved, we don't know. But it looks to be that we can get the 400 square, which is the minimum lot size. So it is a house at the front. Yep. The access is wide enough, all the rest of it. So it looks like we can get the minimum lot size out of the rear. And it's the reason why I liked it so much. Its location's amazing, school zones, all the rest. It's a great spot. And minimal land supply. It has a park next to it as well, which isn't a park with swings. It's just this massive, big, wide space.
Yep.
So basically, the design of the block has this house at the front, has all this parkland here, and then has all the rear at the back. So if you were to, sorry, my hands look really bad on the screen when I do that. Sorry, guys. So if you were to look at putting like a sardine house just because you can, doesn't feel right to me.
Yeah,
And if it doesn't feel right to me, it isn't going to sell well either, right?
yeah, for sure.
So, because I'm my target audience.
Yep.
So at this stage, I'm going to try and get that rear out, the rear minimum out of the rear block. I've got some obstacles. I've got a sewer main right through the middle where we'd have to build.
Yep.
I've got so many obstacles. My town planner missed it. My original town planner, before I put the offer in on this house, missed it too.
Wow.
Yeah, so I found that out when we were unconditional. No, I found that out 4 days before we went unconditional through Dial Before You Dig.
Yep.
It wasn't, of course, listed on the, because it's not an easement, right? So it's not listed on the title.
Yeah. Okay.
Like it's not, they don't talk about mains, if that makes sense.
Yes.
They talk about there's an easement on it. I knew the easement was there. They don't talk about this. So you can feel me here. It's 4 days before we go unconditional. This property might not even be worth anything, right? I might not be able to do anything with it. Holy crap.
Yeah.
I've got 4 days and
Yep.
I've got to go this alone because my town planner's kind of not getting back to me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, council, great. I ended up getting through to, senior engineers at the local water company.
Yep.
And having conversations, and pulled the plans for next door and found that where theirs is redundant, it runs into mine. I found that theirs goes up, across,
Yep.
comes back down, meets with a manhole, and then runs across. So where theirs is redundant, they've moved it.
Right.
They've moved it. Okay, right. This is me, processing in this 4-day period and probably 4 12.5-hour shifts or something amongst it as well. So basically I could, from that spot, have some more conversations, and find out whether it's major works, minor works, how much costs to move the sewer main, can I move it? So I'm going probably a little bit too deep, but I'm just trying to explain between the lending issues. Like there's a lot of stuff, yeah.
Yes.
There's a lot of things, but I think it just showed like nothing. My point is nothing's easy, right?
Mm.
If it was easy, as the saying goes, everyone would do it. Nothing's easy. I can make it look easy on the outside, right, if I wanted to, and that's what a lot of people do. But that's not the reality. The reality is, and I won't use my swear words, but the reality is it's bleeping hard. It is really hard, but it's worth it.
No, and we really appreciate getting the inside view, right? Because you could come on the show at the end of the project and say, we bought this and we subdivided, we built something at the back, we renovated the front, and it's gone from X to Y, and this was the development cost, so we made, $300,000 or something like that. But you're actually in the middle of that. So I'd love to come back to you on the other side of this development where it is a little bit, hopefully, more champagne and cigars. But
Hopefully.
yeah, I really appreciate the insight into the project so far. So for you, Jenny, the goal was retiring at 50. Where are you at, and what's the future for you looking like in your property and your adventures and your retirement goals? The Give for Growth Property Investing podcast is presented by our business, MCG Quantity Surveyors. If you're an investor or a property professional looking to get the best tax depreciation deductions for yourself or your clients, please get in touch with us at mcgqs.com.au. It's our mission to help as many property investors as we can to maximise their claims and maximise their property education as well.
So I want to have my home where I live now. So I had to get comfortable with living forever in a townhouse. That was a lot of soul searching, trust me, and not the big house that I wanted as well. So, maybe that goal moved. Doesn't mean it has to be, but it's like worst case scenario, right? So I can actually move forward. So it's basically having the mortgage amount, the total mortgage amount that I owe on this property, in the offset. in the next 5 years. That requires me to make an additional $120,000 a year on top of my day job
Yep.
every year for the next 5 years.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I mean, you've mapped it out, right? And that's a big part of the process, right? Unless you sat down and figured out, well, this is what I actually need my property journey to deliver for me, whether that's that amount each year or that's doing nothing and then something in 4 years' time to make up that deficit. I mean, how do you get to that goal without sitting down and going, well, this is what it's got to look like?
Yeah. And that's all it is, like, whether it be in 5 years' time or 20 years' time or whatever it might be when people are starting out or midway through or end up, where I was sort of halfway through and all over the place. It all just comes down to current state. Where am I now? And your future desired state. So my future desired state was a beautiful home, big home.
Yep.
I had to decide, and by 50, I had to decide what was most important to me: the beautiful big home or retiring by 50.
Yep.
What's most important? And it took a long time. Anyway, so basically the retiring is more important because I want to be there for my daughter. Okay. So my daughter's been through a lot of stuff. She was homesick when I lost had to pay $15,000 more on this development site. She was off sick for that 4 days. Of course, she's not at daycare whilst I'm negotiating one of the biggest and most complex property deals in my life. Of course,
That's not how
of
it is.
course, of course, I chose to play cubby houses with her for a cost of $15,000 in 2 hours. I love it. Why not? My skin's crawling, you can tell.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. So it's basically your current state here is assessing that and where am I? What do I have? What do I like? What do I want more of?
Yeah.
And then it's just your future desired state over here, right? So a lot of people go, the numbers. I think future desired state is much more heartfelt. The numbers are the easy part, right? So I can make up numbers, but what does that mean? Does that equal your happiness? Like, what does the money buy you? What do you want?
That's a good point, right? Because
Money's
people would
just
say,
money.
I want $3 million in superannuation, or I want a portfolio worth $2 million or $5 million or $100 million, whatever it is. I mean, you figure out, well, what do I want my life to look like? Where do I want to live? What do I want my passive income to be? And then you put the numbers to it and the numbers become
Absolutely.
real, right?
Well, you look at what buys your future desired state. You look at what buys that, because you're going to have to make sacrifices to get there, right? So you've got to work out if the trade-offs are worth it. And when it's a dollar value, it doesn't work for me, and it doesn't work for a lot of people, right? So it's probably my change management formal training background, but it doesn't work. I need to feel. So I need to feel. I need to place myself in my ideal desired state in an everyday. What does it look like? What does it feel like? Who's around me?
Mm.
And one of my biggest things is I'm not stressed. That is one of my biggest things in my future desired states. So basically, that's the big part. Draw pictures. I don't know. Find your motivation. Like, is your child happier because you're at their school presentation or something? Find those things that really drive you. I mean, money drives some people. It doesn't drive me. There's no judgment, but money doesn't drive me. I could have $20 million, but am I happy? I don't know, because I'm aiming for $20 million. I'm not aiming for happiness. So basically, once you can get to what your normal day looks like, and I picture it every morning now because it's my motivation to keep going. So I have my little meditation processes and habits of a morning. So your future desired state, and then all you're doing in between is assessing your capacity, and that's, people say capacity in property and they think borrowing, but it's your personal capacity, it's your time capacity, resources. What resources? So it's assessing your capacity and your resources, and then it's bridging that gap. What do I have available to get me from my current state to my, I'm using my hands, sorry. What do I have available to me to get me from my current state to my future desired state? What's available to me?
Yeah.
If
And
I don't have enough resources, how can I build them? I don't have any cash, but what else do I have that can make me cash? Can I study something? Can I read books? Can I connect with people?
mm,
That's building new resources to do it as well. It doesn't mean that I don't have many resources now, I can't. It just means you have to take a check of where you're at, and assess and see what changes need to be made to be able to bridge that gap.
I love that. And I think that is often what's most missing from property investors from a strategy point of view, is that they might just have a number like, oh yeah, I want to have a portfolio worth $10 million, but okay, you get there. But as you say, are you happy? And are you going to be driven to achieve that because you need to fill in certain cells on a spreadsheet? Or you're going to be more driven to achieve that because, well, what you want to do is you want to live in X house and you want to have this relationship with your child, or you want to be able to do this in retirement, and you want to be able to go on holiday in certain locations. I know what would drive me 10 times more, right? And you're sort of talking about meditating on it on a daily basis. So this is what puts you, I think, next level as a property investor. Not only have you got that plan, but you're thinking about it so regularly that every day you're considering, is it making me closer to that today, or have I got to change strategy or change resources?
Well, that comes in a different spot. The meditation's all about envisioning and grounding myself, and because that helps give me my capacity. Because spiritual capacity, as much as it sounds bad, read The Making of a Corporate Athlete. It's a thing. Trust me. If Harvard's selling it, it's a thing. So yeah, that capacity is there. Yeah, it is. But habits. So these are the things that I find people more, I shouldn't say I find, because it makes it sound like I'm saying I get it right, no one else gets it right. I'm not saying that, but for me, what works is creating habits, right? So habits, sometimes people say, oh, I've got to change my mindset, or, they talk about resilience and those sorts of things. Everything is habits. If you can build habits, daily habits, and they become norms, so they become easier. So they take less of this too. They take less of your capacity. You actually build your capacity more with the habits, so you've got more capacity to juggle multiple things when you have to.
Mm.
Jump over obstacles when they're in your way. So yeah, the meditation is really important, as is the habits. So I actually make sure that I do two things from each category. I have categories. So I do two things from each category every day. So I do two things that are just for me, two things that are for other people, two things that are business related. What's my other one? Where am I? Two things for my household.
Right.
Two things off my list every day. That's it. And I map them out on my calendar. You're looking at me like I'm the strangest person in the world.
No, I'm just thinking about, it puts you in rarefied air, I think, as an individual that is just so not only uniquely driven to achieve what you're trying to do, but you've also got a very David Goggins attitude of basically any obstacle is just, okay, well, we're going to have to deal with that. And I mentioned before, it seems like you eat obstacles for breakfast. So I was sitting there having a little bit of a moment of reflection, which is actually probably poor form for a podcast host, but it's just got me being a little bit introspective as well. Jenny, time flies when you're having fun, and I think this is almost certainly guaranteed this is a two-part series, but I want to ask you one last question. In all of the stuff that you see on a regular basis when you're participating in the Facebook forums and people are asking for advice, I've got this money, what should I do? Is there any sort of common denominator of something that you think that investors are getting wrong, or an insight that you kind of think people might be missing? If you could, impart a little bit of wisdom to people that are trying to get on the journey that you're already on and so committed to, what do you think there's missing, if anything?
less data. People need less data, and they need to actually just sit with themselves more. They need to sit and think about what they want. They need to sit and think about what's important to them, because there's all this data. I could do this. I want that. I want, oh, what about this spot? Oh, I could invest in this place. That's just taking capacity.
Yep.
So people wonder how I do what I like, do so many things, and I juggle at a lot of things, and I might not do it well, but, and a lot of people say to me, how do you, oh my God, you're the Energizer Bunny. How do you find, it's because I don't waste capacity on thousands of different things. Should I invest in Perth? Should I, oh, what about this? Oh, I wonder if I can develop this site. Or are you a developer?
Mm.
I mean, like, if you're not, why are you thinking about develop? Like, it's okay to educate, but that just forms one of the tasks each day, right?
Yeah.
So if one of the tasks for your business or yourself is building your capacity and knowledge about property, well, then you schedule that as one of the tasks for the day, and you time block an hour out every day to learn that. But you're not thinking about that the rest of the times. So it's to get some structure to the thought pattern, and I still think that less is more. If you can get, if people can get that structure and understand their wide future desired state, I think that's where a lot of people could actually achieve their goals, basically.
And without considering what you term your future desired state, then there's a million different ways to be distracted on a daily basis, right? There's this hotspot, there's this data, there's this trend, and it's like, oh, I was looking in Perth, but maybe I should now look in Townsville, or, oh, there's a land tax change. But no,
I feel like I need to hold on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
yeah, there's always something new, there's always something distracting, but you've got to do that groundwork first and say, what is it that I want my life to look like? What have I got to achieve to get that to happen? And then that will narrow all of the things. It might take development away from it at the cycle or the stage that you're in. It'll take hotspotting away because there's only a certain amount of borrowing capacity that you've got. So it narrows the search, That's where I think I completely agree with you. I think that's great advice, and a lot of people get that one wrong. Jen, we as a collective group of anybody listening today wish you all the best with the development and your future, and we really appreciate the open, honest appraisal of life that has been for you, warts and all, in your property journey. And we're all rooting for you, and I'd love to have you back just to check in with you in the next little while to see how you're going.
Sounds great, Mike. I'd love that.
Thanks, Jen.
And thank you for all your advice and all support, and everybody else. We've got a great little wonderful property team going on. So thanks, everyone. Yeah,
and if anyone's interested, we're sort of hustling some people in the Australian Property Investors Group to have some local meetups, possibly in Newcastle or Sydney. So stay tuned for that. Thanks, Jen.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Thanks, Mike. Bye.